Say, what's cracking, YouTube? It's your boy 16 to life, and I'm back like I'm on a parole violation. Yard down! Now, for those of y'all that's new to my page, in 1994, I got arrested. I was eventually sentenced to 16 years plus life, and I served 24 years straight in the California prison system. During those times, I accumulated some good stories and insight on things related to prison, and I'm going to share some with y'all today. If you happen to like this video, be sure to hit the like button, leave a comment, subscribe, and most importantly, hit that notification bell. That way, anytime I drop a story, you'll be notified ASAP, and you can hop on it whenever you're ready. Also, if you're new to the page, I rap. Do not get it twisted. My flow is nothing like Curtis Blow. Go to my YouTube playlist, scroll down to gas stations, and you're going to find some of my music there. You definitely going to be surprised. Also, I got a song called Never Gave Me Therapy. It's on all major streaming sites. Check your boy out. Now let's hop up into this video. Now, if you have been following the California prison YouTube channels, you definitely know that a situation is brewing between the Southern Hispanics and the blacks at a prison by the name of Salinas Valley. How we got to this point was there was a Crip from San Diego who was at a prison by the name of High Desert. His next door neighbor happened to be a member of the Mexican Mafia. Now, it has been reported that the Mexican Mafia member was drunk and continuously disrespecting the Crip. At some point in time, the Crip had enough of being disrespected. He came out and he stabbed the member of the Mexican Mafia. After that situation got under control, the Crip was eventually transferred to a prison known as Salinas. When he was there, the Southerners pushed up on the blacks and the Crips, asking that they remove this individual from San Diego who had stabbed the Mexican Mafia member. They refused to do it because they was under the feeling that this brother stood up for himself. He done what any man should do, and why should we remove him because another dude was disrespectful? So after a month or two, the Southern Hispanics rushed and stabbed that particular Crip who was coming back from work one night. He was able to get away and let the blacks know he had been stabbed, and a riot ensued in the day room. I believe 3 more Hispanics were stabbed. Eventually, the situation was put under control, and the prison went on lockdown. Now, those of us who have done time in the California prison system, we anticipated more incidents coming from that situation right there. And unfortunately, something has happened again. A couple of days ago, I believe it was on August 24th, after they had them on lockdown for about 2 weeks, they started doing what was known as incremental release. Now, the reason I have this information, I have a homeboy who is up there, and his cellie was directly involved in this altercation. So he has relayed this to me. Now, so he said that the guards came to his cell and asked him if they wanted yard. Well, actually, they came and they asked his cellie. So when my homie spoke up and said, "Hey, what about me?" He said, "No, man, we have a highlighted list, and we only letting your cellie out." And my homie asked him, "Hey, well, what's up? Why can't I get out there?" He said, "Because they are doing it on a point system type basis," whatever that meant. And so for whatever reason, they only let his cellie go to the yard. Now, according to my homie who I spoke with, he said that the blacks up there definitely feel that they were set up. And here's why. Maybe about a year or so ago, my homie told me that at that particular prison, the Southerners are short. Their numbers are short. And he told me way back then that in the event they got into it, and it was a racial issue, the Northern Hispanics would have their back. Now, this was before they agreed to support each other. When I say they, I'm talking about the Northerners, the Southerners, and the Paisas, right? And so, which is, in me doing time for a lot of people who don't know, I've never been to a prison, and in most prisons, the Southern Hispanics are gonna have the numbers, you know. They are the highest population in prison. Well, let's just say the Southern Hispanics, but let's just say that the population for Hispanics in California is this. The population for the Hispanics is 44.1%. The population for the blacks is 28.3%, and so on. I believe the whites are like at 20%. Now, of course, all the Hispanics in prison are not Southern Hispanics, though, so we definitely have to make that clear. They are at, like I said, 44.1%, but the Northern Hispanic population is definitely extremely lower than the Southern Hispanic population. So, I say all that to say, my homie told me at that prison, the blacks definitely have more numbers than the Southerners. Actually, as we were on the phone, he did a breakdown and counted the racial makeup in the section that he was in. And so the racial makeup goes like this. He told me there were, let me make sure I get everything right, man. There were 22 blacks in his section before this latest incident. There was 12 Southerners and there was 4 Northerners in his section. So when they released everybody for yard, all these buildings, once it was all said and done, according to my homie, they had 8 blacks on the yard. There were 8 blacks and they had 40 Hispanics. So now, if the racial makeup at that prison favors the blacks, why were the numbers so unfavorable when they was released on the yard, right? And so now this is what my homie told me once again. Now, he said out of one block, they let out one black dude who was 65 years old and on a cane. Out of 2 block, they let out 0 blacks. Out of 3 block, they let 5 blacks out. And out of 4 block, they let 3 blacks out. Now, out of all those blacks that they let out, like I said, it was 9 of them. When they came to yard, the people on the yard told the black dude on the cane, hey man, listen, you know it's wartime out here. It's unsafe. You 65 years old, you on a cane, go back in. So he went back in. So that dropped the numbers from 9 down to 8. Now, the youngest, according to my homie, of the blacks who was out there was a 25-year-old dude from Hoover. The next youngest was a 39-year-old dude who happened to be my homie Selly. Outside of that, everybody was older than 39 years old. And like I said, he said they let out 40 Hispanics. So they were out there, they was having yard. I guess everything was cool. Once they recalled the yard, he said that about 20 Hispanics returned and was going back to their building doing what's known as an inline, and that's when you're going inside the building from yard. And at that point, the blacks figured, hey, you know what? This is our best situation, and they rushed the Hispanics. Now, the reason why they rushed the Hispanics is because, once again, they were standing up, feeling that the brother from San Diego who got stabbed was unfairly attacked, and basically they wasn't going for it. And so they rushed the Hispanics, got into an altercation, and like I said, it's 8 blacks versus 20 Hispanics, according to my homie. They got into it. The yard was eventually put down. The situation was under control, and everybody was initially sent back to their buildings, according to my homie, because I asked my homie, well, how were you able to talk to your cellie? And he told me that everybody who participated in that was, or at least, if not everybody, at least my homie Selly was allowed to come back to his cell, but I believe it was everybody, and pack their belongings in anticipation for their trip to the hole. My homie Selly had recently just came back from court. He said at the end of June for getting a life sentence took off. I can't remember the exact number. I believe it was a 50 to life, but he was fortunate enough to have that life sentence removed and came back with 30 years. So now he's got caught up in this situation right here. He said that his cellie said in the course of the battle with the Hispanics, he was knocked down 3 times. He said, but he kept getting back up. The exact words that he told my cellie, and my cellie relayed to me, was he said, man, I look good on camera. You know what I'm saying? He was squabbing. He said he got knocked down 3 times, but each time he would get back up. Eventually, he was shot in the ankle and the right arm. Also, there was a Hispanic who was shot in the face with the block gun, excuse me. Now, according to my cellie, while the Northerners were on the yard, they were there when the incident happened, they did not participate. Only thing he said the Northerners was doing was pretty much making a general statement, don't come over here, don't bring that stuff over here. They was fighting, I guess, when it happened. The Northerners either proned out, or maybe they stood up. He didn't elaborate on which, but they held their position, and they spoke in general to everybody, don't come over here. Also, he said, while there were whites on the yard, the whites did not participate, but he said the whites was definitely creating a distraction, just running around hollering. And also, there was and I won't say that, I'm not going to put this jacket on the man, but there was I'm not going to say that he was a Mexican mafia dude, but there was a very important Hispanic on the yard, right? And he said the white people, let's just say for the purposes of this story, his name was Tony. His name was not Tony, but for the purposes of this story, let's just say his name was Tony. He said the whites were just running around hollering, protect Tony, protect Tony, protect Tony. Now, according to my homie, Tony is always walking around with an entourage, and so the whites was definitely just being distractful, running around just, because normally when a riot breaks out between two different racial factions, whoever is not involved, they'll just sit down or they'll step back, they'll get up against the wall, they'll definitely get out of the way. And like I said, my homie reported that the whites was running around just trying to be a distraction. I don't know if they was trying to make the blacks think they were going to get in it or whatever so they could turn and look and maybe be blindsided, but this is what he was doing. This is what they was doing, according to my celly. According to my homie, who the information was given to him by his celly, who once again was allowed to come back and pack his bags, and then eventually they came and got him and took him to the hole. Now you have some people crying about hey, you shouldn't be telling people. Somebody left a comment. We shouldn't be telling the outside people about what's going on in prison. But now they have cameras recording everything in these prisons and stuff. And like I said, this information has been out there. It's quite well known. Also, my homie said when before the riot took off or whatever, he said they had the warden, the assistant warden, the lieutenant, and several COs, which is easily believable, staring from the patio looking out to the yard, because when there's tension in the air in any prison, of course the administration is going to know about it, and you are going to have extra COs out there, maybe not necessarily on the yard, but ready to respond in the event something happens. Now, according to my celly, I forget if it was a lieutenant or a sergeant, he said that even though the blacks were let out in unfavorable numbers, in the event that yard had ran smooth, the next day it would have been the opposite. They would have let out more blacks and very few Hispanics. But my thing is this here. The administration pretty much has been doing time as long as convicts and prisoners have been doing time. So when you know it's a situation of this multitude brewing in the air, why not let out even number of convicts? You know what I'm saying? That way, at least everybody will have an even chance to protect themselves. And so that's why the blacks in Salinas feel that they were set up. Their numbers were extremely short. Like I said, it was only 9 of them let out versus 40 Southerners. The youngest was a 25-year-old, then a 39-year-old. Then, according to Marcelli's homeboy, the rest of them was older than that. So, people who were pretty much older age, you know what I'm saying? So, the situation definitely looks ugly, and it's probably not going to be resolved anytime soon. Also, according to my homie, you had 4 Hispanics go to the hospital in ambulances. And so that's the situation right now that's still brewing in Salinas Valley, right? And some people may ask, well, what does the administration have against the blacks? Why were the blacks potentially or possibly set up? And it's 1,000 answers to that one question. It's hard to say, but this is something that is not new in the history of the California Department of Corrections. Many a times when there is potential war between the blacks and the Hispanics, they will let out a small amount of blacks as opposed to a large amount of Hispanics. One situation that comes to mind was a riot in Lancaster. I believe at some point the blacks had attacked staff, and then eventually later down the line got into it with the Hispanics. And so a very small portion was let out of blacks and a large portion of Hispanics. And of course, the blacks got the short end of the stick in that situation, right? Now, so I also want to say this, we have a lot of different YouTube channels reporting on this situation, right? And sometimes the information that we get is only as good as the source. We have a lot of these dudes in prison on both sides of the racial coin, blacks and Hispanics, who will not report an accurate and unbiased they will not give an accurate and unbiased report of what actually happened. And we have homies like that, right? I remember I had a homie one time, man, and we were in Ironwood together. And like I said, man, I rap. We happened to be having a rap contest on the yard that day, and maybe about 8 or 9 people, was entering the contest. And of course, crowd participation played a big decision in who would move forward to the next round. And my homie flat out told me, he said, "Hey man, I'm gonna cheer for you and vote for you, whether you the best or you the not, because you my homie." And I told him, "No, homie, don't do that. If somebody is better than me, get that person his props." But so I say that to say, you have people sometimes, you have homies who are gonna support you whether you're right or whether you're wrong. And that is the situation that leads to trouble, because when I came to prison, I was taught you only support your homie when he's wrong if things get physical. If he don't continue to support him when he's wrong and make him, because then you're miseducating him and you're making him think that what he's doing is okay, and eventually it's going to lead to a situation where somebody is going to get hurt. And so, sometimes some of this information, because it was reported on this situation that the blacks had got stabbed and all this old type of stuff, and from everything that I heard from my homie, it was nothing like that. So sometimes, the information that we receive is not something that we should just go running with, right? And which is why I was a little bit late to come with my video here. Also, man, what is more important than that is for all of us who are watching these stories at home in YouTube, and we're rooting and picking sides, and I understand why, right? Everybody has a connection to something, especially if it's a racial connection. So you definitely want to see people who look like you come out on the better side of the situation. Like I said, if you happen to be a Raider fan and the Raiders play the Packers, you're going to cheer for the Raiders. You know what I'm saying? If you're in a situation, you somewhere where the Americans might be playing England in whatever type of match is, and you're an American, you're going to cheer for the Americans. So I understand that, right? I understand it's easy to side with whoever we identify ourselves with, right? But one thing I have to say is we are failing to realize that you have individuals whose lives and whose freedom and whose health are in the balance of these situations, right? People ask me, well, why do you report on these stories? My question to them is, why do you watch first and foremost, right? I report on these stories because I have a prison channel. So if you don't like this type of information, don't watch the channel, right? Also, man, keep in mind that I got arrested when I was 22, maybe a week and a half before I turned 23. I spent 24 years in prison. So whether I like it or not, prison had became my home. Tell me anybody spend 24 years any place and tell me that you're not going to have some type of connection to that place, whether it's a negative connection or a positive connection. I've done 24 years in prison and I was only on the streets for 23 years. So I definitely have a connection. And also Salinas Valley was the first prison that I was sent to ever. You know what I'm saying? And so, and I have a immediate homeboy up there. And so I have a connection to all these things, right? But I still know that it's a dangerous situation. And honestly, I'm hoping for peace for everybody involved, because I can empathize with everybody in that situation. Hispanics, blacks, everybody. And here's why, right? I know it's ugly. It gets ugly up in there, and while we're out here rooting and picking sides, like I said, you have people's lives, freedom, and health on the line, right? Everybody up there may not necessarily have life. But now let's just say you have a dude, he gets caught up in that situation, right? He goes to the hole. He might be going home next year. He gets caught up in that situation. Maybe he might get 16 more months for participation in a riot. He might get another 2 or 3 years if he batters another inmate with a weapon. So now that inmate, or excuse me, that individual, he doesn't go to a lower level prison. Now, once again, he's caught right back up in the thick of things, and now he's sent to another level 4. Now, you know what happens in that situation now? Now, mentally, you start getting a little discouraged because you know in order to get home, you have to get home. So it's pretty much no participating when you're in this situation. You have to participate in order to stay alive. But now instead of going home in 2024, you may not be going home to 2028. So now the likelihood of you getting caught up in another situation on a level 4 is even stronger because now you have more time to do. And so now, like I said, now your freedom is jeopardized. Your health is jeopardized. You may have to pick up a knife and stab and kill somebody. And now you're in prison for the rest of your life. While you have everybody at home, we're rooting for this side to win and we're rooting for that side to win, but we're out here living our lives. So I just hope to everybody that's watching this, blacks and Hispanics, don't get extremely emotional to the point where you're rooting for one side to harm, hurt, or kill another side. Because like I said, at the end of the day, those men up in those prisons, they have families that are worried about them. They have things, hopes, dreams, and stuff that they want to come home to and participate in. It's unfortunate that they put themselves in that position, and that's the life that they have to live at that point. But let's try hard not to root and hope for war. Let's all hope for peace, even though it may not come. Anyway, you already know what it is. It's your boy 16 to Life, aka Keep It Real Chill. Resume normal program.